Hello and welcome to What Are the Odds? In today's video, we will discuss the likelihood that the events are to be repeated in everything, everywhere, all at once. We will use another split to determine the answer. We will focus on the key events of the movie, ignoring inconsequential or insignificant ones, or events with the sole purpose of becoming factors for other events. If something is of high probability, we will also ignore its impact. Finally, if an event serves only to delay a later consequence and ultimately will transpose into another event, it will be ignored. After we've determined the key events in the story structure, we will use those for the final event's odds. As the movie deals with multiple universes, we'll only determine the odds for the outcomes of the origin split. That is, the universe we are first set to follow. Evelyn leads a hectic life with her laundromat business. Story-wise, the first significant moment happens when origin split Wayman Wang is first seen to be under the influence of his counterpart from the Alphaverse. From here, we will keep track of the odds of any events that change Evelyn's trajectory in life. As of now, she is at risk of losing her business and husband. She also wishes to keep her daughter's relationship with Becky away from her father. With these initial conditions, we will examine the movie's events. In the elevator, Wayman becomes controlled by his other version and gives Evelyn a sheet of instructions. Through a montage, we are shown Evelyn's previous decisions and key moments that have led up to her life at this point. Already we can establish that there are an infinite amount of splits in this movie's reality. Alpha Wayman mentions that the multiverse is infinite. In the middle of their meeting with Deirdre, Evelyn follows Alpha Wayman's instructions and ends up merging her consciousness with another version that's stuck in the janitor's closet. We can exclude the odds of her following the instructions as they are merely the inciting incident. Without this occurring, there would be no story and this video would not exist. We will use the factors of each event to help determine the odds of the successful outcome of each. Event number 1, Evelyn punches Deirdre out of confusion. Factors for this event include Deirdre coming to the elevator at that time and Wayman mentioning to fight. Event number 2, Wayman's successful fight at the IRS building. Factors include event number 1 occurring and Wayman's decision to fight. It is the Alphaverse's mission to find the one that can stand up to Jobu's shard of chaos. Through one of Deirdre's verse jumps, we can see it comes with morphological changes. This time, it's Evelyn's turn to verse jump. In order to do so, she must profess her love to Deirdre. Apparently, this action is the quickest way to reach her jumping destination. Essentially, a statistically improbable action will slingshot one from a neighboring split to their desired universe. Her verse jump backfires, and she ends up in a neighboring split in which Wayman and Evelyn discuss divorce. Deirdre continues to hunt Evelyn down. Meanwhile, Evelyn confesses her love to Deirdre and successfully verse jumps. Although the odds presented for this to occur were 0.01%, I believe that to be the case if Evelyn wasn't trying to verse jump. Event number 3, Evelyn defends herself with Kung Fu. Factors include the Kung Fu verse jump. Shortly after Evelyn is caught by the cops, Jobu Topaki enters and kills nearly everyone. Jobu opens up Evelyn's mind's eye and shows her the everything bagel, a bagel in which they put literally everything on. Alpha Gong Gong suddenly steamrolls Jobu Topaki. Because she is living her worst life, Evelyn is capable of anything because she is so bad at everything. Alpha Gong Gong instructs Evelyn to kill the joy in her universe to give Jobu Topaki one less split to access. In order to save her joy, Evelyn decides to become like Jobu Topaki. Meanwhile, Alpha Gong Gong recruits every Alpha version in the area. Event number 4, Evelyn fights off the Alpha army. Factors include multiple successful verse jumps. Evelyn's consciousness becomes lost in the multiverse. She meets up with Jobu Topaki, who explains how she will forever be entwined in the multiverse. With the help of Evelyn, Jobu Topaki manifests the everything bagel into the origin split. Event number 5, Evelyn fends off Jobu's army. Factors include defeating her enemies with kindness and using the Rakakuni die. Evelyn doesn't let Jobu walk into the bagel until a joy in another universe convinces her to let her go. Jobu ultimately relents, and is saved. From then on, Evelyn goes on to experience everything, everywhere, all at once. This film's final event is that both Jobu Topaki and Evelyn survive and will live on with their fractured consciousnesses. Only the factors that have led up to this moment will be considered. Events that did not contribute will be ignored. Factors include the punch, the fight, and the jumps. As for the reasons, while the events that follow are contingent on Evelyn punching Deirdre, does that mean those same events and resulting outcomes could not occur without it? I believe so. Without the immediate conflict, Jobu may not have found the origin split and none of the movie would have happened. This same reasoning can be applied to the fight that occurs, which draws Jobu's attention in the first place. The rest is simple. If Evelyn had not been able to defend herself, she simply would have been killed and Alpha Wayman would have likely sought a new Evelyn to take over. She also would not have reached her fractured state and resulting abilities had she been killed earlier than she was in the film. Finally, the odds. The reason the ability to download skills isn't considered a factor is because that is already an inherent fact of the world. Therefore, it doesn't need to be considered. Now it's time to determine the odds for all this to occur. First, the odds of Evelyn punching Deirdre. The only factors that aren't inherent facts tethered to this event is Deirdre's decision to head to the elevator at that time, Wayman mentioning fighting, Evelyn deciding to punch Deirdre, and the likelihood that Evelyn's punch makes contact. Let's start with Deirdre's decision to head to the elevator. I'm going to weigh this event against the other possibilities, those with the highest likelihood of course, and how many facial expressions Deirdre could have chosen that wouldn't have been confused with hostility towards Evelyn. Due to that, the other possibilities will include going to the bathroom, taking a moment at her desk for various reasons, or finding someone to talk to. Of course, any event is based on their own factors. For example, if Deirdre did not have to use the washroom, it would be unlikely for her to do so. Given that, we'll reduce other outcomes odds by half. Next, facial expressions. Assuming her mood directly influences her expression, I will assume she's relatively grumpy. Because of this, related emotions that can cause a similar expression will be weighed heavier: anger, confusion, contempt, frustration, to name a few. Thankfully, we only care about the odds of her facial expression and don't have to think of every emotion and their associated odds. If 3 of her alternative actions come with half odds, that means the likelihood she heads to the elevator becomes 1 in 7. Furthermore, the face she expresses reflecting hostility in her emotional state will be 3 in 4. Ultimately, the odds for this event come out to 3 out of 28. Next, Wayman mentions fighting. For this event, we'll look at other words Wayman could have used to express his idea of fighting. Looking at common English language synonyms and words that could reflect the concept of fighting he was going for. There are many. Again, we can simply split them up by how many have connotations that directly lead to a physical fight and, as a result, Evelyn's punch or not. For examples on either side, think battle and overcome. The odds? 1 in 2. Evelyn decides to punch Deirdre. Evelyn was panicked and decided to punch Deirdre mostly out of confusion from the situation. If she had stayed calm and remembered that Alpha Wayman directed her not to draw attention, I'm certain she would have simply stepped aside if she still feared that Deirdre was coming in for conflict. We can certainly analyze different but similar situations in which someone chose to punch someone else. However, none of them, I'm sure, were in the exact same situation as Evelyn, and none of them were Evelyn. Because of that, we'll assume that her decision is a unique event because of Alpha Wayman's presence. Because of this, I'll designate her decision to fight as 9 out of 10. Now, the contact being made. Punches don't always make contact. However, Deirdre may still have reacted to a missed punch in the same manner, calling for security and yelling. Given the situation, I'm sure exactly that would have transpired with high likelihood. Another 9 out of 10. This section's odds ultimately come out at 243 over 560. The next event is Wayman's successful fight in the IRS building. Here, factors include the decision to fight. We'll consider Alpha Wayman's fighting ability to be more than sufficient to handle the fight with high probability each time. Wayman's decision to fight. Alpha Wayman at this point in time feels that fighting off the security is his only option. However, I'm not sure why. If it's to avoid attention, his fight only made things worse. If it was to avoid trouble for Evelyn, no doubt fighting was the wrong decision. We'll assume that he's prone to matching conflict with violence. From the little we've seen of him, he has been shown to rely on other techniques to get out of a bad situation. We'll consider the following situations for a sample: the initial IRS fight, the help we're in danger scene, and several more combat scenes. From this, we can also see the two options he likely maintains in the original fight: to fight or to run. We'll use that to estimate the likelihood that he chooses to fight rather than run at a 3 out of 4. Next, Evelyn defends herself by verse jumping. Factors include multiple successful verse jumps. Assuming that only one weird action leads to a successful verse jump with a valuable skill, we will use that fact to determine the odds for what makes a successful verse jump. This will include all the verse jumps for which Evelyn had no idea what she was doing, including the Kung Fu verse jump to beat a kick-flying Deirdre, the maid verse jump to learn about the secret button, the singer verse jump to get past the gas, the pizza spinner to combat the riot shield, and the chef to combat with unique fighting skills, plus the last Kung Fu verse jump. Successful verse jumps. Although we are shown the exact odds for particular actions several times on screen, I believe these are the odds for them to occur unprompted. We'll also treat Evelyn's Kung Fu verse jump separately, as she was aware of what she needed to do. For this, we'll determine how likely it was for Evelyn to profess her love to Deirdre. Now, it's hard enough for most people, but given this was a life or death situation, I'd bet on Evelyn to manage. During the fight scene, she had about 5 attempts, and only on her last she succeeded. Due to that, we'll use a simple equation to determine her success rate, as if she has a 20% chance for only 5 attempts. The other times she verse jumps, she's doing weird things and hoping that she gets a useful skill by chance. We'll treat all weird actions as equal. Therefore, we'll split the actions into the following subcategories: weird actions, weird props involving objects, and weird noises involving sounds, or professions of love. We also have to consider that there were multiple avenues of success in each situation. To simplify the problem, we'll assume any one category could have resolved the situation at hand successfully. Therefore, we get 1 in 3 odds for 5 more occasions. Those 5 odds accumulate to be 1 out of 243. Basically, the odds of something with 1 out of 3 odds happening 5 times in a row. Added together with the earlier calculation, this section's odds becomes 2,101 over 759,375. Finally, all multiplied together, the odds come out to 1,531,629 over 17 billion, 10 million. Reduced, it comes out to 6,303 over 70 million. Well, now we know that if we were to travel to a random split with the exact same necessary initial conditions, the likelihood that you'd see these same events transpire and the successful outcome of the final event is 0.009%.